Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to All Praise Picks. Today we're looking at the MLB. We got the Colorado Rockies playing against the Houston Astros in Houston on June 26th, 2024. Currently, the Rockies are 27 and 52, which is fifth in the NL West, and the Astros are 39 and 40, so one game under 500, and they're second in the NL West. They've already played one game in this series, and the Astros won yesterday's game 5-2 after scoring 5 runs in the first inning. And I think that the Astros do have a slight advantage in this one as well. The pitching matchup in this one is a little bit closer than it was yesterday. But I do like the overall matchup for both offenses in this one, but I'm leaning more towards the Astros. But I got a few parlays for you guys on BetMGM. As always, I'll break down the lines, give you my thoughts, and hopefully if you tap in, we can all win. So this is the first parlay that I have at plus 120. It's a 3-leg parlay, and in the first 5 innings, I actually have the Rockies covering a 2.5 run line spread. So the Rockies, they're starting Ryan Feltner, who's 1-6 in his starts with a 6.02 ERA. But his expected ERA is at 4.71, and his WHIP is at 1.48. His WHIP is a little bit higher than you'd like, but with his expected ERA being nearly a point and a half lower than his actual ERA, I think that he's due for some positive regression. And the same is true for the Astros starting pitcher, Spencer Arrighetti. He's 3-6 in his starts with a 3.36 ERA, but his expected ERA is at 4.05, and his WHIP is at 1.71. So both pitchers have a very high WHIP in terms of league averages, which just means that they allow a lot of walks and essentially like runners on base. But because both of their expected ERAs are lower than their actual ERAs, I think that they both could have better games than they have been statistically for the entire season, which is why I was leaning towards the Rockies to cover the first 5 innings by 2.5 runs, essentially not to lose the first 5 innings by more than 3 runs. But I do think overall the Houston Astros are the better team in this one. So far this season, the Astros are top 5 in terms of highest on-base percentage with 0.75 OPS, and they're top 2 in highest batting average at home, especially with a batting average of 0.64 for the season versus right-handed pitchers. On the other hand, the Rockies are ninth lowest in OPS at an OPS of 0.694, and they're middle of the pack in terms of batting average versus right-handed pitching at 0.247. So I think overall in this game, the Astros will have a higher chance of winning. So that's why I took them in the second part of this parlay at plus 2.5 run line spread. So essentially for them not to lose the overall game by more than 3 runs. And because both pitchers have very high statistical ERAs, even with their expected ERAs being a little bit lower, I could see both pitchers getting hit up in this game in terms of allowing a lot of runs, especially in the first 5 innings, which is why I took the total number of runs in the game to go over 5. And even if this is a low-scoring game, like say both pitchers have a pretty good game, the total could still go over 5 if it's like a 3-2 game or a 4-3 game. You know, any combination of scores that goes over 5 would allow this parlay to hit. But I do feel good about a lot of runs being scored in this game in terms of, especially on the Rockies side. They usually struggle away from Coors Field, and on the season they've been decent, I guess, but more so middle of the pack against right-handed pitchers. But I think that this is a good spot for them against Arrighetti, who does have a high ERA, and he also has a high walk rate. His walk percentage is at 12.8% versus Feltner's is at 6.2%. So Feltner actually has about half of a walk rate than Arrighetti, and that could lead to the Rockies scoring more runs just off of having more base runner potential. But at plus 120, if you bet this parlay, say one unit is $100, you'll have 120% return on your investment, which is more than double and is great. And I just advise you guys to have financial consciousness and overall bankroll management when deciding to place this parlay with me. So these are the next 2 parlays that I have at plus 105 and plus 125. Both these parlays are pretty similar in terms of the first 2 lines. So looking at the left parlay, I have the Astros at plus 1.5 runs in the first 5 innings, essentially for them not to lose the first 5 innings by more than 2 runs, and for the total number of runs in the first 5 innings to go over 2 runs combined. But I also have the Astros run line spread at plus 1.5. So essentially for them not to lose this game by more than 2 runs, and for the total number of runs to go over 6. So this parlay on the left side is pretty similar to the first parlay that I showed you. And at plus 105, you just make just over double your money if you bet 1 unit on this parlay. But looking at the parlay on the right side, at plus 125, the lines for this parlay are pretty much all the same, except for in the first 5 inning spread, I have the Astros covering it by half a run, essentially for them to either be tied or leading going into the 6th inning, which I do think is a good chance of happening. On the season, Arrighetti has a much higher K percentage than Fellner. His is at just under 24%, and Fellner is just under 20% on the season. And as I mentioned before, Colorado is a top 5 team in terms of number of strikeouts they have per game, and they don't play as well away from Coors Field due to altitude differences and just playing poorly on the road. So I do lean towards Arrighetti to have a better overall pitching game, and I think that as long as he has a good game and the Astros bats are ready to play early, that they should be either tied or leading going into the 5th inning. But at plus 125, if you bet 1 unit on this parlay, you'll have 125% return on your investment, which is a little bit more than double. But because I placed bets on both of these parlays, I just put a half unit on the one on the right side and a full unit on the one on the left side, just because I felt more comfortable taking the Astros at a larger run line spread in the first 5 innings than on the one on the right. But both parlays, I think, do have a good chance of hitting as long as the Astros come to play. So these are the next 2 parlays that I have at plus 165 on the left side and plus 180 on the right side. And these are just involving lines that I think the Astros starting pitcher, Spencer Arrighetti, could hit. So I have him going for fewer hits and fewer home runs than Fellner for the Rockies. And this is just more so leaning towards the Astros bats as a whole. They play much better at home, and in comparison to the Rockies starting lineup, they have a much higher likelihood of hitting home runs and just getting hits throughout the game, especially with Fellner's high ERA. So I do lean towards Arrighetti to have fewer hits and fewer overall home runs. I also was just thinking that if, say, both pitchers end up getting hit up in this game, the Astros have a much better bullpen than the Rockies. So there's likelihood that Arrighetti gets pulled from this game before Fellner does. And the Astros also have an incentive to win this game, as the Rockies are pretty far out from playoff contention. So even if Arrighetti has a bad start, he likely will not play more innings than Fellner, especially if both of them have bad starts. So looking at the parlay on the left side, I also took the Astros at plus 2.5 in the first 5 innings, which is more so just a safeguard against Arrighetti having a very, very bad first 5 innings compared to Fellner. But I do think that even if he has a poor start, that the Astros should not be down by more than 3 runs out of the first 5 innings. And I also took the Rockies to have over 2 runs in this game, more so just going along the lines of that game theory of if Arrighetti has a bad start, the Rockies will likely score runs, and they're more likely to score runs earlier in the game. So I took them at 2 runs, and then for the full game, I took the Astros at plus 2.5. Because even if the Rockies have a strong start in the first 5 innings, I think that the Astros bullpen, in terms of their other pitchers that they have, as well as just their bats as a whole, will be able to bring them back into this game within 3 runs. So at plus 165, I put half a unit on this parlay, but whatever parlay unit amount you decide on, you'll have a 165% return on your investment, which is a little bit more than 1.5x, which is a great return on your investment. It's more than double, and it would be great if this parlay hits, but as always, I just advise you guys to have financial consciousness and overall bankroll management when deciding to place that bet. But looking at the parlay on the right side at plus 180, the first 3 lines are the same, as well as the Rockies to have over 2 runs in this game. But I just took the Astros at plus 1.5 instead of plus 2.5 for the full game, just because I'm leaning towards them to win the game, honestly. So that was just a more value for that parlay. But at plus 180, the same line of thinking goes, where just have bankroll consciousness and an overall understanding of how much you're putting into each parlay if you decide to place this bet. And this is the last parlay that I have at plus 310. So the first three lines of this parlay are the same as the prior two parlays, but I also have the Rockies at plus 2.5 and the Astros at plus 2.5 for the full game. Essentially, what I'm saying here is that even though I'm leaning towards the Rockies winning this game, I think just because of the high ERAs for both of the starting pitchers, I do think that this game could end up being close. Even in yesterday's game, the Rockies, they lost that game 5-2, but they ended up putting up 2 runs in the later innings and holding the Astros to no runs after the first inning. So at the end of the day, it is baseball, and it can be more of a defensive game, especially if a team goes up by a lot of runs early. So I do think that'll just leave room for the Rockies to come back, especially if the Astros are up early. But at the end of the day, it just takes one hit for a few runs to be scored. So I do think that the Rockies could keep this game close, and they did show that they could keep the game close yesterday. So I'm trusting them to do so in this parlay as well. But I put another half unit on this parlay. But at plus 310, if you put 1 unit on the parlay, you'll have a 310% return on your investment, which is a great return. But because of the higher odds, I decided to do a half unit on this one. But it'll be exciting to see how this game goes, and appreciate you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more MLB videos coming out later today, as well as WNBA later this week. But until next time, peace out.